You reading the comments? Are you
I'm
reading the
trying
comments?
to. That's what
Charlie Clinton.
I knew you was gonna see that. I seen you over there grinning. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I was sitting here trying to go through them. Hey, y'all.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Gary. That's right.
Thank you for joining us. Mr. House. Oh, what time did you go to bed last night, buddy? Are you just now waking up, or did you make it to church today, Greg? I'm ready for a good show, especially crazy Misty. Yeah, squirrel's crazy for sure. If y'all would have heard the crap storm that Misty and Greg House were giving me last night.
Yeah,
keep telling y'all on Team Misty, you're wrong. You're wrong.
No,
David
you deserve everything you get.
Well, Misty
Greg said I kept him up. Okay, Greg, come on now.
I think we all know that's a lie, Greg. Anyway, how is everybody? Hope you had a good week and all that kind of stuff. I don't know about everybody else around the country, but damn, it seemed like it was hot this week. I didn't have to work much. I tore up my knee and took a couple days off, and I just sat out on the deck. But dang, it was hot this week. Greg does HVAC, and whenever I was doing commercial refrigeration, a lot of people were under the impression that, you know, my job was okay in the summer because I worked on AC units, and I was like, no, you don't get it. If I got to go there or go to a walk-in or whatever, it's because it's broke. It ain't cool in there. It's hot. World problems were what last night? Yeah, I bet you two solved the problems of the world, no doubt. Anyway, and by the way, I don't see Mark Green in there yet, but I'm wearing.
Oh, let's see it. Look, check these out, y'all. These are awesome. Are you taking it to Greg's?
Can you see it? You see it?
Yeah, up just a little bit.
How about that?
There you go. Look, check those out.
Yep. Mark and Rebecca Green made them for us, and I finally found it.
I love them.
Anyway,
take it to Greg's. That's going to be our when we go out and eat t-shirts.
Yeah, and it's white, so it's going to show where I drop food all over the front of it.
Yeah, you're a man. You're a messy eater. I forgot.
What? I know you are not talking about the way I eat food.
Don't bring up no taco salad.
It wasn't a taco salad. It was a damn. It was a plate of nastiness. You mixed all that crap together, and you were about to slurp it up with a straw.
Y'all, no, hang on. I got to tell this. This was funny. This was the first time I met Spencer. We go out and eat. Bama's got this place set up, and it's a Mexican restaurant. And I always eat a taco salad when we go in the bowls, you know, the bread bowls. So when you break it, after I pour a whole cup of salsa and, you know, cheese dip and all that on it, it gets a little messy. I had to have 3 plates to contain that taco salad. And Spencer just looked at me like I was one of his kids, and he just starts sliding plates over to me and moving stuff.
Shut up, Greg. Oh yeah. Yep. That's what I did. I did commercial refrigeration, not necessarily HVAC. We did that whenever we had time to, but I mostly did like giant walk-ins in like Walmart and Kroger and Hooters and restaurants and stuff like that. And I did a lot of ice machines and prep tables and everything. Anyway, so let's get on with the show. So was it last week? Was it just last week we had Mike on? I think it was Mike Bluler. Well, anyway, if you watch Mike's channel, he's got a buddy named Roger Williams that's on there. Roger told his encounter, and that's how I saw it. And I asked Mike if I could talk to him. There's Mr. Green. Good afternoon, Mark. And anyway, so we got Mike Williams. Might as well bring him out. Mike,
Roger Williams. Sir? Roger, not Mike.
Roger Williams. Shut up.
You gotta watch him.
Him too. How you doing, Roger?
I'm doing good. Thank y'all for having me on.
Thanks for doing it.
Oh, I'm here to learn.
before we even got started, I saw somebody comment asking what part of Tennessee you were in. So why don't you tell where you are now and where all your stuff happened at roughly?
So
Hi,
I'm in
Katie.
Marshall County, Tennessee, and the easiest way to explain it is I'm 50 miles directly south of Nashville. If you come out of south I-65, we had exit 32. My family, my mom and dad, we had a store there for 28 years, and so I've lived close to I-65 my whole life. I live in Cornersville now, but it's just 5 miles away from actually the first encounter, and then the few encounters we've had lately, and started 3 years ago. One one is on a farm located directly on the Marshall County line to the south, on the south end, and the other one's closer to the north side. So it's it was 35 years in between, encounters or whatever. And like I told you before, my mom and dad had a farm, and after we moved from this one place, and I never heard anything, saw anything, had issues or of any kind, and it never went away. But once you see one,
Yeah,
you're always kind of looking over
I
your
bet.
shoulder, listening. So
Well, I mean, so I would assume that you like grew up hunting and fishing, camping, all that kind of stuff and everything. Walk us into your very first one, and you can go right from the first one into the second one. If y'all would please try to let him get his story out, and then hold the questions until he gets most of it out. And if you would put the questions in caps, please, makes it easier to see. But take it away, Roger. You've done this on a couple shows. You know what you're doing.
yeah, and how this got started, I heard Mike tell his story on a podcast, and I reached out to him,
Yeah.
and it just felt like time to get it off my chest. So anyway, I'm 52. I was born in 71, and like I grew up in a rural, very rural part of Tennessee, um, and so for fun, we hunted, we fished, we slept on the creek bank and fished at night, had a fire going, and just sat around, and and we didn't have. I had nobody around me during this period. And my dad, I believe I was 8 years old. I got my first BB gun, and he would take me out hunting with him, and I would, be hunting with him, just walking along, just teaching things, showing me safety, gun safety, whatever. Um, so we were at this place. My mom and dad owned about an acre, but I was lucky enough that the few farmers around didn't allow any hunting, but they liked me and my dad. So I didn't have to ask. I could just, I come home after school, I hit the woods. Saturday, hit the woods. Just a lot of times by myself. After about 12 years old, I could pretty much do whatever. But so you're always you gently. So if you live in the area, and some people in the chat, if you live in an area where you see wildlife around your house, I step out the door. Sometimes before I would step out, I'd look and see if there's anything in the backyard or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had a field. There was access to a cemetery that split. Our driveway came out of it, actually. And then on the other side of that access was a long field that went up. I had guesstimated it was about 300 yards. Well, my son and I drove by a month or so ago, and it was probably about 200 yards from where when I saw this. But it was just a normal day. It was I do know the leaves are off the trees. I don't know if it was. I don't remember if it was hunting season. I was 14, and I was bored. I walked out into the driveway, across the access road, into the neighbor's field there, and I was looking up, and a lot of times there was travel way. I hunted in that back left corner, but you couldn't see the mound I sat on because there was a little point that came out and went around, and I hid back there in that corner. And I'd seen my dad walk from there tons of times, and he was 5'8", and I step out there and I'm looking, and there's nothing in the field. It's green. There's no obstruction. But the top part of the hill where they would bush hog sometimes, most of the time they wouldn't. And I'm telling this, so when I get to this later part, you miss several bush hoggings, and sometimes that regrowth will come up and it'll get entwined. And so if you walked up that hill, it was tough. It was, and I noticed movement to the left at that point, and something stepped out on two legs. It was all one color, and it was very, very big. And that's the first thing I noticed, because my dad, I knew what he looked like in that, coming around that corner there. And I just, like, I mean, it freezes you, and you're looking at it. I didn't want to panic. And it looked up the hill, and I had walked up that hill several times, and I hated it. But it was from that point that this thing was standing at, it was the shortest way to get away from me to the next point up there, because it was really thick on that left side. And I'm staring at it, kind of in shock. And I've told people later, I believe it knew I was there. And I think because I'd hunted those woods by myself a lot, maybe it knew me. I don't know. It's just a feeling I had. But anyway, this is thinking about it later. So I'm to its right, and it's looking up this hill. And all of a sudden, it did turn its head. But like if we turn our head, we can, we turn it like this, look over the shoulder. It turned its head, but as it did, the shoulders, the left side dipped, the right one come up a little bit, and it kind of twisted at the middle and looked at me. And I'm like, oh shit, and it turned back. And of course, when it did that, I could see the mass up here better. And it decided it started walking. And the first thing I noticed was, I knew when I walked up that hill, I'd have to throw my legs out, up and over that grass. Right. I couldn't lean walking up the hill without having to lean and balance and step with my feet forward. I just couldn't do it. I had to bring my feet over and over like that. Well, when it started walking and it started up the hill, it had a little bit of body lean, but it was more like a walking horse. That's the best I can describe it. The motion up and over. It's, not exaggerated like that, but it was just up and over. And I can't tell you the dimensions of the arms and the legs and all that. I just knew it did not look right. If that makes sense, sure. If I saw you walking up through there, or my dad, I would say, hey, that's Spencer. That's, so it covered that distance. I knew it took me minutes, a hard minute, even stopping and resting, because of how the motion of having to walk and all that. It never slowed down. It didn't run, but the ground it was covering with each step, I try to think back and think, if I told you how many steps, it'd be just a guesstimate, but no, 12 or 15 maybe, but that and the distance it covered was just crazy. But there was a gap up there that the reason I would walk it was because it was the shortest distance to an alfalfa field in the back. And of course, in the evenings, that's where I wanted. I didn't see anything over here where the water and stuff was at. I would make my way up over to the alfalfa field and catch them coming in there. They like to eat, close to dark or whatever. So this thing was headed that way.
He's talking about deer, in case y'all didn't know.
Yeah, that's sorry. But yeah, with deer hunting, and it just wasn't right. And it was very tall. That's the first thing I noticed. And I told my dad about it. And I did. I said, because we had seen the Patty film back then and all, and not much else. And I told my dad, I said, I think I saw a Bigfoot. And he's like, you're, Not with me. I don't like that. I don't want to see one of those. But anyway, he laughed at me, and I kind of shut it down. But after they had an experience just a little while later, I don't know you guys, but there was not a lot to do. So my mom and dad every now and then would ride around, sip on a beer, country road. There was no houses hardly back then, and it was on Simmons Ridge Road, and it crosses the interstate at one point, I-65. But he had to relieve himself, so he stopped the car there. You know, it's probably midnight ish, and so you got the glow from the tail lights and the headlights are on. And my mom got out. She was stretching her legs, and he said he heard a tree snap up on a bank. He said the bank was 12 feet or so up, and then you had a 4-foot, just a woven fence up there. And he said he heard the first snap. It was just a loud crack, you know, and then there was another one. He thought, damn, that's something big, you know. Could have been a cow, could have been a bull rubbing up against something, you know, whatever. He said, but he said it took a few steps, and he said it must have jumped, and it landed in the road behind them. They couldn't see it, but it was 2 feet. He said it was boom, boom, and you could feel it when it hit the ground. And he wasn't scared of much, and I don't think at that point he was just trying to figure out what it was. He said, but then it started running towards them. And he said it was kicking rocks to them. When the feet would hit the ground, it was running up the hill, and rocks was coming to them. And he was screaming at Mom to get in the car. Well, after all this happened, he opened up a little bit and was asking me about what I had seen. And we went up there, and if I'm on my tiptoes and reach as high as I can, it's about 7'6", 7'7" on my tiptoes, you know. And we went up there, and the limb that this thing had walked out under that came out over, it dipped down a little, but it was out in the field there. We went up there, and he had a measuring tape, and I reached up, and I said, that's about 7.5 foot, Daddy. You know, and he said, well, let's, you know, and it was about, because it was, you know, I say 6 to 8 inches, the head was under that limb. So I had an idea about where it was at. So that's you know, it could have been 7, and it could have been a little more, but, he said, and he just kept saying, there's no way. There's no way. I'm like, I mean, you know, we're up here. You asked me, you know, this is what I saw. And he knew, I was told, you know, grew up told to be honest. And when we deer hunted, or if I saw some animal and I told him it was a 6-pointer, it was 99% it was a 6-pointer.
Right.
And, you know, with a 12-inch spread or whatever, you know, I never did, I mean, there's no point in it because we hunted the same place, and I would tell him these deer that I would see, and he, you know, he was better than I was. He'd usually end up with them, but yeah, it started there, and I had other stuff happened in that same location that I didn't put it together back then until later. Before the sighting, one morning, it was a Saturday morning, they had forecast snow. And you know, southern middle Tennessee, we don't get a lot of opportunities hunting the snow. And I had a couple times, and I was looking forward to it. Had everything ready, got up and walked my normal route. I had 2 places I hunted. The back corner on that mound, I had a chair set up, and I had a tree stand on it was like a game trail that come into like 3 different ways. And I was right there at that intersection. And my dad would hunt the other side. So that's where I was going that morning. I thought, I'll get in my tree stand, you know, and that's what I'll do. So, you know, when it's snowing, you're out in the woods, everything's so quiet. The flakes are falling. There's no sound. And I'm just like, man, this is awesome. So I get to the edge of the field, and it's bright, but I guess because it's so bright, it makes the woods, because it's overcast, it makes the woods a little darker where I'm going. And all of a sudden, this feeling of, I hear it all the time, but this feeling of dread, doom, whatever you want to call it, this gut feeling, my gut's just kind of like shaking. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. And so I'm like, I'm talking to myself like, don't punk out, just go. And I had this thought come through. I felt like in my gut that if I went into those woods, I wasn't coming out. And I'm like, that's nuts. So probably 3 or 4 times I tried to step with my right foot and I couldn't.
Just couldn't make yourself do it.
I physically couldn't do it. I was trying to break whatever had me. Now I can explain to you now how it felt like. I'm scared of heights now, and I've locked down a couple of times next to a 100-foot or 200, whatever, these canyons we go visit or whatever. We were out at Dead Horse Point State Park in Utah, and it was like 2,000 feet down, and I was in the middle. I wouldn't get close to the edge. I was videoing from a high point, and I can't do it. And I never had that feeling before, but that's what it was. It was like. So, and I tell people, I don't know what made me do this at all, but in my head, I was like, if you'll let me go, I'll take one step backwards with my right foot, and I'll walk back to the house, and I won't come back out here today. And as soon as I did that, I don't know if it was something mental with me or what it was. It felt the weight was lifted off of me, and like I was free to go. I turned my foot. I did exactly what I said I was going to do. Walked in the house. And my dad, you're there looking like, what are you doing? You were so excited. And I didn't want to discuss it. I just lied to him. Oh, it's cold out there, and I just did something else for the day. Probably stayed in and watched cartoons or whatever. But I don't know what that was. Still don't know what it was, but it was in the same area. And I had a time I freaked out in the tree stand that I, had forgotten about. And I had a similar feeling, and I'd been up there a lot. I was younger. I had a single shot 20 gauge, and I wasn't scared to go back there. My dad, he would help me up in the stand. And one day I had a feeling something was watching me, and he got so strong, I just started screaming for him. And he came back and ruined the hunt, But we're talking about no more than 200 yards. All of this is within 200 or 300 yards. The sighting after, that I had, I don't know what to call that lockdown was, and then freaking out in a tree stand. And years later, I didn't know there was such a show as Finding Bigfoot. And my son was here at this house, and I was cooking for him. And I guess he'd been watching it. And I never had told him any of this at all. And I heard the sound coming from the living room. And I'm like, what the hell? Because I'd heard it before.
Right.
Several times. But it didn't do it justice. The volume's nowhere near, of course.
Recordings don't.
No. And I'm like, I had a weird shape that in the house at the time. So I peeked around the corner. I said, what are you watching? Oh, it's a show, Finding Bigfoot. And they go hunt for Bigfoot. And this is Matt Moneymaker, the how, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's supposed to be a Bigfoot? And he said, yeah. I said, shit. And so I told him, I said, I've heard that, at least a half a dozen times. And the first time I ever heard it, it came out of that alfalfa field that I had talked about. And you hear trucks with their Jake brakes and stuff like that. Yeah. It's pretty loud. It's loud, but it's not like this. Because even though it was, let's say, depending on where it was in the field, where it was coming from, let's say about 700 yards, could have been a little more, a little less. But that's the first sound I think I ever felt. And when it hit me, it was odd. And I had no idea. I had no idea what it was. And for years, and I heard it, and we started hearing it more. That alfalfa field and the woods. So when the one I saw when it walked up the hill to the left, there was a fence row, and it was all just real thick, just thick woods right back to there. I mean, we didn't go in there. It was just hard to walk in. All of that land back there, maybe 1,500 acres to a couple thousand acres. This company moved in and started strip mining for phosphate. And man, when they started doing that, I heard the screams more then.
Yeah.
And so thinking back on it, maybe it was, mad at what was going on. But when they tore all those woods up, I noticed one day that there was a lot of fresh dirt that spread out trying to fill in those holes and everything. And being, 15 at the time, maybe, I had the thought, if there's something as big as what I saw walking around in these woods, there should be footprints if it's been out here. So I didn't have permission to go over that fence, but I did anyway. And I walked around all over. I didn't find any. And it was weird that I didn't know anything about supposed markers or anything like that. But I did from that point forward keep an eye out for footprints. So yeah, that was the early part. And after we moved from there, my mom and dad bought a farm. It was 143 acres, and I never had anything happen for a long time. Nothing there. We're only talking 5 miles away, and maybe, who knows, this thing might have relocated because of the mining. But I've heard several stories from all over the county. But that's the early part. That's what got me. I don't even know if it's interested. It's just like when I would see something or if I see something on TV, I would stop and watch it, just trying to understand,
right,
what they were talking about. Because there was nobody here that you could go to, but I did have one guy. He lived right down the road from me. He was a game warden. His name's Don Odom. We're in contact all the time. So he taught our hunter safety course back in the day. And I've got my hunter safety card from I was about 13. It's got his name on it and everything.
Oh.
So I was comfortable with him. Like, I would ask him questions about, quail hunting, turkey hunting. We didn't turkey hunt for a while. And I'm like, hey, how do I need to do this or whatever? And he was always happy to help a kid out, So we continued now, and he's told some stories of some things that's happened him and whatever. But so that's how I got started. I went a lot of my life. I raised my kids, didn't get to go hunt much. My mom and dad sold the farm. And not until I think it was fall of 2020, maybe 2019, we had our encounter on the south end of the county. And by this time, like I said, it was 35 years in between. So I had read a book or two, or I've watched some YouTube videos. Some of the ones that were total BS too, and
some of them. There are a lot of them.
I know. It's hard. It's not hard to filter through, because a lot of times you can tell what's going on. They're there for entertainment. They're not for educational purposes, or they'll take stories they've read.
I still watch them too. I still think they're interesting, even though most of them are crap.
Really, in all honesty, though, the Bigfoot community owes them a debt of gratitude, because they've normalized the subject so much.
Absolutely.
That people are a little bit more comfortable talking about it now.
Well, so when you go to Walmart, you can buy deodorant, Dr. Squatch, and
right.
And so, and what I always thought was funny, because I told you, since when that happened, I would just ask people, hey, you ever seen a Bigfoot? Hey, you ever whatever? And sometimes you would have somebody. I told this one person, he heard me talking. He said, oh, Bigfoot, like I was nuts. I said, listen, dude, I sat and listened to you tell me that you went to the bathroom one morning and you saw a 3-foot tall evil dwarf in your hallway and scared the shit out of you, and you wouldn't go to the bathroom. You're a grown man, and you're going to laugh at me because I saw something flesh and blood. And he's like, I guess you're right. So you have these people, they'll believe in the the craziest crap. But like watching Mark, I believe it was, talk the other night, and I could just put myself where he was at, with this thing peeking out behind the tree, and walked in behind him. It makes you think how many times it's just like a deer. They'll lay down and let you walk by or whatever. Oh, there's no telling how many big bucks we walk by. How many times, this scares me, how many times have they been there and we just didn't know it? That's fine. It's just, I think I scare myself sometimes when I'm out of the woods thinking about things. But
it's a whole different mentality, I reckon, once you've come to the understanding that there actually is something there. That's going to put the creepy feels in you whenever you go out in the woods, because if they can do that, if they can get that close to you, that's just not something we're used to. That's not something we're comfortable with.
Well, that's how we catch a lot of our pictures, because it's like stuff will be tree peeking, or I'm not saying that's what it is, but we'll take pictures just in a 360 and then go back through them later, and it seems like a lot of the stuff that we find, that's how we get it, because it'll be off at a distance, like watching you.
That's right.
Yep.
See a lot of Bigfoot stickers
right
on cars nowadays. All right, yep. Misty, quit your yapping and let him finish telling his story.
I've got so much stuff, and some of the things, and was what shows like this help too, just like the stickers or whatever. After I put myself out there on the limb and told my story publicly, knowing what was going to happen. They don't come to my face and say stuff, but
yeah,
I don't. I'm 52. I don't give a rat's, what now. But what it's done is made people come to me in private and like, dude, I'm glad you said that, because you talking about this sound hitting you and vibrating. This happened to me, and I don't tell anybody, because I'll get fired from work. They'll think I'm crazy. Yeah. And that person that told me that story didn't have to do that, but it made him feel relieved, because something else happened to him in a tree blind. It's a blind. It's a fancy one. They've got money. It's one of those with plexiglass and whatever.
Oh, that, yeah.
But he hadn't hunted in 5 years because of it, and I know him very well. I know the area. It's not too far from, where all this took place with me, and that made it worth it, I guess, because I'm standing at a gas pump a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and I see this guy I went to school with, and apparently he's seen my Facebook posts and whatever, and we started talking, and he said in 2008, him and his wife were in his Jeep, had the top off, doors off, and everything. It was warm outside, summertime. And he told me, he said, he asked, he said, where so-and-so's pig farm is on a certain road? Yeah, I know where that's at, on the north end. He said, we passed there. It's around midnight. And we're just out cruising. And on the left side, he said, I didn't have time to react. He said, but a Bigfoot stepped out into the road. It didn't look at me. It was like it was looking at something in the other field across the road. And I didn't have time to swerve, but he's got his top open. He said, Roger, I look up and the light is on his face, and he goes like, the Bigfoot goes like, oh shit, like, he done got hit by this Jeep, and he flinched. He said, I'm looking right up at his face. He said, I've been obsessed ever since. My wife saw it. He said, I went to the landowner and asked him. He said, I gotta talk to you about something. He said, okay. He said, have you ever seen anything weird out here? And he said, he looked at him and said, I've seen the big boy twice. He didn't even tell him what he was talking about. So I never would have known that. I never would have heard. He wouldn't have felt comfortable telling me that story. And I don't think he cares if his name gets out there, but I know there's several that do care. And maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe it'll keep me from getting a job sometime. But so we fast forward, like I said, about 35 years, and my son gets permission to hunt this place. And he said, they said you could come with me. And I'm, well, we don't know anything about it. Do you know anything about it at all? He said, no, it's way back in the middle of nowhere. He told me where it's at, and I knew the area. And so we went scout, maybe a couple weeks. It was pretty quick. That's what we need to know something before we go in there, you know. And so we're looking at the fences and the water situation, food and all that. And we're being quiet, but we're not super quiet because it's not hunting season. I think I've got a 357 on my side, and I can't remember. He had some pistol with him. And I see this tree snap, and the top is still there. And I start thinking, like, wait a minute, I saw this on my wife's home fussing at the dog. I hear. I see this tree snap, and the top's still there, and it's laying there. It's about 4.5 foot up, and I'm thinking, I've seen this on these TV shows. Is that a marker? Is that what they mean by a marker or whatever? And then you're like, no. So all this happened at the same time. My phone the Siri is supposed to be set to my voice only. It's in my shirt pocket. My phone's in my shirt pocket. We hadn't said anything, and I'm facing towards the snap tree. My son's down below it, so he's looking up the hill. And so right as I take a step to the side past that marker, and my phone, Siri says, I don't quite understand. Well, we hadn't said anything. So my first reaction is grab the phone because we're in the woods, right? And I'm looking at it, and out of the corner of my eye, I can see the rock. It's about the size of a double fist. Comes through or above the cedar to my right. There's a bunch of them there, bunched together. And it lands and bounces and rolls to a stop 7 or 8 yards from us. And I look and I see it, and then I look back at my son, and I just kind of nod, like we just acknowledged each other, like, oh crap, you know. And I'm trying to think what the next move is. I don't know what just happened. But I'm thinking there's nobody here. And like I said earlier, a cow can't throw a rock at you, you know, up and over like that. So he said, you know, are we just going to ignore the fact that we had a rock thrown at us? I said, no, I'm thinking what we need to do. And so we were like, you know, like in whisper, like, I think we need to back down. Don't turn our backs on this, whatever this is. Walk down and get to the field where the cut through is, and the fence is low. And then we'll discuss this in a truck, you know? So,
not here.
And we talked about it. We didn't feel threatened. We've hunted there the past 3 years, maybe 5 to 6 times a season. And we've had strange things happen. He's heard strange things. And one morning we carry radios, and I hunt in an area where he can shoot any direction. I mean, it's his place really. So I'm just there, you know, with him. So I get down in a place where I'm safe and we can be safe. And had the wind blowing at my back one morning. I got the fold out chair, and I put it up in some briars back in there, get me a place, you know, up against a oak tree or something. And he's got a stand, and you know, quiet morning, still dark, and the wind hit me in the back of the ears, just a little breeze, light breeze, and I get a whiff of something, which I've been there 15 minutes, hadn't smelled anything. And first thing I thought, something dead, you know? but it was kind of like, it was kind of mixed like wet dog, as best I can explain it, with decay, something that's decaying, you know. And but the thing is, Spencer, I got a couple good whiffs of it, and it was gone. If there's something dead behind me, it ain't moving, right? It ain't gonna stay there. So I get on the radio. I'm like, hey, you know, keep your head on the swivel. We've got something in between us that stinks. And he smelt it a few times, but yeah. So this is what got this started, of us going out to some of the land at night and listening and, you know, whatever. I don't know.
There have been people that have done that. I mean, not me, but there have been people that have done that, and supposedly they get the rocks thrown right back at them again.
I'm gonna tell you that was the farthest thing from my mind.
Yeah.
Throwing.
Well, you know that's like people realistically again. If you're and I understand this, I understand people asking this question, but
Right.
a lot of people, you know, that they'll watch Bigfoot shows like this one, and they'll pop up a question and say, "Well, why didn't you get out your phone and take a picture of it whenever you saw this thing?" When you're actually out there and you're going through this stuff happens so out of nowhere. I mean, you got to be wearing a camera that's already gone if you're going to get a picture of it. And, you know, secondly, you better don't. Right?
What did they tell you about throwing rocks at Sasquatch? To not to.
Yeah, you better don't. Greg, if we come down one your way and one throws a rock, I'm throwing it back at them and hiding behind you.
Oh yeah.
But no, you know, they ask stuff like, well, why didn't you think to take a picture of it? I mean, that's the furthest thing from your mind, I would reckon.
Right. It's just like this. I saw a 3-car pileup in front of me Friday. And so we'd ask somebody, have you ever seen a wreck happen in front of you? Yeah. Well, why didn't you jerk it out and camera out and film it while it was happening? Well, you don't, you're worried about safety. You know, you're not thinking about all this. So yeah, I've heard people ask that, and it, you know, it's a legit question. But like there again, I had my son with me, knowing something was up, and hell, if it was somebody throwing a rock, and we're sitting there with guns, they're pretty mean to start with, right? So you don't know what's going on. You're trying to figure out what to do because you don't want to get the first thing I don't want to do. I'm too fat to run, but I don't want to trigger a response, you know. But somebody did ask me, but it's good to ask questions because somebody did ask me this question. They're like, "Well, did you ever go behind those cedars?" And actually, about a year later, because it was on my mind, like, what is back there, you know?
Yeah.
So, and we did. We had a few more guns with us that day, and the guys, it's not to kill a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. There's things out there that'll bite you, you know, if you let them, and that's what that's for. Coyotes. My son I've only seen 5 bobcats my whole life, and he had 5 chasing a deer, trying to surround a deer in front of him one day at this particular place.
Really?
Yes, he shot one of them. He shot the younger male, but they were surrounding this deer, and this deer had been running for a while. I said her tongue was hung out, and she was nervous, and they were working this deer. So they just happened to do it.
A pack of bobcats were chasing a deer.
I've never heard that before.
Me neither.
Ever. I heard him shoot, and I thought, well, hell, he just killed a deer, you know. And I went up there, and there's a bobcat laying. He said, well, I couldn't shoot all of them. When I shot him, they were gone, you know. So, yeah, so that stuff like that can happen. And what if you walk up on something with babies? You know how that works out. It don't have to be something big.
Well,
you know?
and like what you were just talking about, if you had your son with you, whenever I don't care how old your kid is, it's still your kid. And if you got your child with you and you're out there and something happens like a rock getting thrown in, that parental instinct kicks in. You're not worried about filming it. You're worried about getting your kids safely out of, your ass too, but getting your kids safely out of there.
And seeing the trees break, that's one thing. And my phone acting crazy is another thing. But when that rock came up and over like that and landed, it changed the whole situation that we were in, from scouting deer to like.
So you found a broke tree.
Mm-hmm.
Your phone started talking on its own.
Yes.
But like as if you had said, "Hey Siri," and then a rock got thrown at you.
All at the same time.
Did you get a creepy feel, or did you get a smell? Did you?
No. It was not a creepy feel, but it was like an uh-oh.
Yeah, it was the shit moment.
And we, my dad, he's gone now, but we grew up, we had our own type of sign language, for the woods. And my son, we looked at each other. We didn't have to say anything. We understood the situation, and that's what I like about him. He doesn't panic, you know, and I think him staying calm made me stay calm. But anyway,
Greg wants to know if you ever heard whoops or tree knocks.
well, we've heard what sounded like I want to say half rotten limbs, but you know, with a fresh green limb would make a crack, you know, just like almost a 22 crack, breaking that sound barrier or whatever. One night we heard what sounded like something had picked up. When I say log, I'm not talking about a huge log. Something that had been there for a while with some mass to it, and we heard that a couple times. It's more like a thud.
Yeah.
But it was definitely wood on wood. I don't know how to explain that, but we've heard that. Whoops, we have on video. I don't think you can hear that sound. It wasn't really a whoop like people do, but it was more of a woo-ah like that right there.
I've heard a woo. I have not in person heard a good clear whoop, but I have heard a woo.
Yeah,
and
up and back down. Yeah.
Yeah, the log thud though, I will say I've personally seen a bear push a rotten log out of the way to get to, you know, grubs and stuff under it.
Right.
And if it hits a tree or whatever, it's going to make that thud sound, you know. So, but I mean, tree knocks are fairly, if you hear a tree knock in person, it's fairly distinct. I mean, it's somebody cracking with a baseball bat most of the time, at least in my experience. And a lot of times you'll hear a reply somewhere else. And that's whenever I'm like, okay, that's a tree knock. If you hear one over here, a loud crack, and then you hear bam, bam coming from over here. Yeah. That's whenever I'm like, okay, that's a tree knock. But.
And you can, I mean, being out in the woods, I've heard woodpeckers before hit a couple times, and you think, you know, that's my problem too. When we had that encounter at my wife's family's land, I didn't realize it, but when I went back and looked at that several minutes of video, hell, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. You know, I'm like, I don't know what I was doing. I'm trying to explain, like, we have this huge audience, and I'm like, well, folks, we have this. I'm like, I was narrating this crap, and I didn't even really realize. And my son's like, yeah, when the really bad one happened, I said some stuff I'm not proud of. But when this air come out of these nostrils, and it was pissed off, it was so loud. It was so much air, and this grunt or growl with it. I said, holy effing, you know, and I didn't realize I said it till we rewatched it, and I thought, oh no, it's so embarrassing. But he said, Daddy, listen. We were rewatching it and listening. He had his headphones on later. He said, right when you get to the H and shit, you can hear a tree crack. Like, you can.
The first time at LBL that Bama heard Booger yell, he was standing right beside me, and I had a recorder going. And I've played it before in the full part, and you can hear Bama going, what the fuck? What the fuck? And Bama doesn't cut, like in person, Bama doesn't, you know, he's very careful about his language. Oh. He's like, holy shit, what is that?
Yeah, it'll make you do that. I had, this was about I don't know, 7 or 8 minute ordeal. And it was so, we heard when I say boulder, it's not a rock. I mean, it could be 15 pounds to 50 pounds. I don't know, you know, but we heard something was throwing a fit, and we were trying to gift. I don't know if we brought the wrong gifts, you know, or not. We had talked to people on the
wrong color.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, I don't like him kind of apple. Damn, you know. But anyway, we had talked to so many people in the Red Creek Mafia that I thought, oh, gifting, that sounds interesting. You know, here I don't know what to do. So 2 apples, a couple oranges, and I have a hoe with us. And my idea was, I'm gonna get these leaves out of the way, and if something steps in here to get these
That's right.
this apple, they're gonna have to step on this fresh dirt. And that's what we were doing. And the 2 days before this, I went out there with just my dog. I've got a 60-pound Staffy, and she's all muscle. She runs out there a lot. I'm scared to let her run now after what happened. Several things that happened. But we're going back. There's a place where you can drive the truck back to the small pond, and then where we did the gifting a couple of days later was up to the right. I found a spot that day, and I'm gonna come back here and we're gonna do that. And I was looking for rocks back there big enough for something to step off of. We heard a few nights before something stepped off of a rock, and it was 2 footfalls, boom, boom, and my son's girlfriend heard it with me, and I said, "Kenzie, did you hear that?" She said, "That sounded like it was big as a cow." I said, "Yeah, it did." I said, "How many feet did you hear?" She said, 2. So now I go back with my dog like a dummy by myself during the day, and I'm just looking for the rocks to see, okay, where could it have been? I see some rocks that have debris on top of them, or tree limbs have fallen. Well, it couldn't have been that one. Nothing's moved that, Well, I start hearing this noise, and it's hard to describe, but it was almost like something big was trying to coax my dog to it with the throat, not like, but kind of that, but with the throat, right, deeper. So I'm looking around. I've got a 9mm with me, and I look at her, and she looks back at me, and all of a sudden she's on the leash. She drops to the ground. She can't get close enough to the ground. She looks up at me with this look on her face like, help. Well, it's about, I can't remember if it was like 70 yards away. And I'm like, that is strange. Well, it made up about 50 yards in a split second. So I've either got something that can move in this dry leaves that's really stealth, or I've got 2 that's of whatever that's here. So I'm like, I'm in a mess here. Do I just take the collar off and let her run, and then me draw and back out of here, or whatever? And then I just thought, you know what, I can't take a chance. I looked down at her and I said, her name's Honey. I said, "Honey, I'm not gonna leave you, but you got to help me. You got to help me. You got to walk." So I took a step, and she got up. She kind of not hugging the ground, but just kind of walking lower to the ground. And she leads me. She's so excited, she leads me everywhere. She was hugging my left knee, and she'd look up and check me out every now and then, and I wouldn't look back. We got to the truck and got up in there, and I got that adrenaline again, like, oh my God. So I thought I had that on video, but somewhere a minute or so because I had my phone running, I jump in the truck and I called Don Odom, my game warden buddy. I said, "Where are you at?" And he was 20 minutes away at his house. He said, "I'm home." Or, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." I said, "I've got something for you to listen to." Drove down there. We're watching this video. I get to this one point where I'm pointing out, just before the noises started, just before, I'm pointing out something. I missed some kind of thorns, and it just froze. The video froze. I said, "It's coming up, Don. It's coming up," and it froze. And I said, "What'd you hit?" "I didn't hit nothing," and my damn phone quit recording. And
Ooh.
I felt this gut punch, sickening feeling, like, is this what people go through? It was right there. If it went another 30 to 45 seconds, I would have had this sound, and I was just worried about him, like he could identify it for me, maybe, and it wasn't there, and I was I was almost depressed. I drove home. I was like, I got to do something. That's crazy. And so we went back to that spot. We were there 2 days before. Me and Honey, we were there. We went through that walkway. Well, Peyton and I, we were going back, and I told him everything happened. He said, "Well, let's go." He got his AR. I got, a shotgun with double alt, and I'm like,
Thank you, Donna.
We'll thank you. Was that what I didn't?
It was Cashew handed out a link to the show and somebody
Oh,
subscribed.
okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You just stay out of this. That wasn't even to you. Barry started his own thing. So you just
Oh, it was to Barry. Forget
yeah,
Barry.
Barry
You better be subscribed to this
started
channel,
a channel.
Barry don't need subscriptions. Subscribe here.
I'm about to mute you. You just sit back and let him talk. Hush your mouth for a little while.
I'm sorry. I talk too much. But I like doing it because it gets it off my chest. And in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I've met so many great people that have experienced things that you just feel like not family, but like, okay, I can talk to these people. They know what I'm talking about, and it's okay if somebody's sitting there that's like, he's full of crap. Well, that's fine, But band,
If you knew Barry Browning very well, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we banned his ass at some point.
Has he been on Mike's show?
Huh?
Has he been on Mike's show? Is he from Alabama?
He's been on this show.
He's been on Mott's too.
I've
You
seen him.
lived in
on
Mississippi.
there with him for like 10 minutes.
I was watching the
Barry's a hell of a good guy. He's got a lot of stuff.
Sometimes I'm gonna tell you sometimes when I get to talking about this stuff, I'm like, am I crazy? You know what I mean? But I'm not one of these people that every little stick break is
right.
Is a danger to you, And and we take people sometimes that haven't been out in the woods. I took my nephew and they freaked out over everything, but it's a chance to teach. We heard a whippoorwill. I've heard that for the first time in a long time, and this thing wouldn't shut up. But it kind of got aggravating. But and we hear the barred owls. You can make the call and get them stirred up. And but the other night we had somebody with us that hadn't been out much, and they were freaking out. Well, what it was my hearing's not as good as it used to be. My son walked over and he said, that's that pond. That's those frogs over there. Well, that's not a bullfrog. Well, no, it's not. They're chirping. They're not,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it helps.
Roger, do you have a YouTube channel of your own?
I do. I've got a few videos where I went out in some of these. The one I'm talking about where I cussed is on there, and I've got somebody right now actually trying to isolate that sound for me. Her sound people supposedly, so maybe 100 miles. Yeah, I know. I'm not. That's what I asked the other night. I'm not too far.
Well,
but yeah, it's Squatch and Holler.
Squatch and Holler. We'll throw a link up afterwards. Put in the comments or something.
And there's a lot of shorts and stuff I did for fun, but there's a few where we got out and walked around where you can see. Now,
are you still going on Mike's show quite regular? Because there for a little while you were helping host and everything.
I do. But what he does sometimes, he gets two great guests at the same time. Yeah, and I'll step back and watch and support from there. And
100%, David.
Oh yeah, a male fox. During the breeding season, I remember catching that on video one time and listening to it, and I didn't know what it was. And I went to my dad, and he said, "Oh hell, that's a fox."
Yeah, foxes can make all kinds of weird ass noises.
And we went over. We had a peach orchard next door, and that's where it was at that night before. So I went over there, and we found the tracks. He said, "See that." But that's how you learn. And some of this stuff, simple as, have you ever been deer hunting and easing through a field and flush a covey of quail?
Yes, and that'll scare you too.
Oh, you have to change your shorts.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've had turkeys come up to roost in a tree right behind me. Yeah, and just I had no idea what it was, and that's a sound that you can feel.
you get about 10 or 15 turkeys come over you, and they're just coasting, and that air coming through their wings, and you're like, it's I told a story the other day. I went to this new place years ago. We scouted a little bit. got permission to hunt, and there was a stand of cedars, but it was one of these rare stands around here of cedars where the first branches were way up, so you could see all through this cedar thicket, and there wasn't any short ones. It's like all the limbs. It was just a pretty spot. I didn't know what was around me, and there you go. Thank you. And I heard this sound. It was still dark. I heard this sound. I didn't know what it was. I'm on the ground, and it's bouncing off of these trees. And so I couldn't pinpoint where it was at. And I'm about to have a heart attack. I didn't have no idea what this sound was. And after about 3 or 4 seconds of it, I got relief because it was a donkey winding up. I was so glad to hear that ending, that bray or whatever. I was like, oh my God, because I had no idea there was one close, you know. So
some of them make crazy sounds. They don't just do it, you know, what people think is what a normal donkey would sound like. Like you said, they kind of get wound up before they really get to going.
Well, you go back to when you were young. Do you remember for the first time you ever heard a peacock and you didn't see him?
Yes. Good Lord, that's a noisy damn animal.
Yeah.
One of the scariest I've ever been, I was in a climbing stand probably about 25, 30 feet up looking over a green field, and a great horned owl landed on the branch above me and like didn't see me. It landed on the branch above me. It stretched out its wings. I was looking at it. I was like, great day. I didn't realize they were that big until you see one up close. And then it shit, and it came down, and part of it hit the edge of my climbing stand. And it was all I could do was like, I'm sitting there looking at it. And I'm like, I don't want to scare it because if it does it again, it's going to shit all over me. But I didn't want to stay there at the same time because again, it might just shit all over me. And let me tell you something, great horned owls, whenever they go big. It's not little.
Maybe he did get a good look at you.
I don't know. He flew.
I called you shitbird for a reason.
He flew away. He flew away a couple minutes later, so I was safe. But I didn't climb up that tree no more.
When you talk about getting into a situation, in a stand or whatever, and it don't have to be big animals. I heard something. I had a stand where it's ladder stand, and I went up. I'd sit my back against a tree. It was about 8 foot up, and I heard something behind me, and it was a squirrel slowly walking down. Well, I turned and looked, and the tail is twitching and hit me in the side of the face right here, and I could smell it. And I'm like, if this thing goes nuts and gets on my head, I'm in trouble, you know? So I was being still.
I've had a squirrel try to get in my stand, and like it was determined. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'd like kick at it, and it'd come around the other side. And no kidding, it got to one point where it would climb up and it'd go over on this branch, and it would look at me and growl at me. Have you ever had a squirrel growl at you?
Yes.
And like, you don't know if you should laugh or be scared, because it's like if something that small has that kind of determination, maybe you do have something to worry about. It's sitting there telling you, I do not like you being here. And I'm like, go away. You're a squirrel. You're not, you're supposed to be scared of me, but it's going, you know.
He did that, and he leaned forward. He and he would jump like that, like trying to get me to move. I'm like, so it doesn't take a big animal to get you hurt, you know.
You might hurt yourself trying to get out of the damn tree stand.
I know.
From a squirrel?
From a squirrel. That'd be a hell of a note. What happened to you? I fell out of a tree trying to flee a squirrel.
Well, what's he after, Spencer, most of the time?
So can we go back to your very first, whenever you were talking about seeing it out there, whenever you walked out and you saw it on the hillside, how far away were you?
I've always, when I had told the story, I was guesstimating about 300, but we went back. we went back about a month and a half ago and drove by there. I wanted to show my son where it happened at, and I said, you know, you see, it was about 180 to 200 yards.
180 to 200 yards.
Yeah, clear, nothing in between. Nothing in between. And I didn't.
We can't have an interview because my co-host falling apart.
Hey y'all. Hey, I love it. I'm glad.
What? What color do you think it was?
I know it was.
Shut up, Billy.
When I tell people it was, Mike, his was just black. He was up close and personal, and I hear the reds and all that. This one, you know what, a Hershey milk chocolate bar?
Sure.
The color Hershey milk chocolate bar. That's as close as I can describe it. It wasn't just pitch dark black. And another thing, people, if you shoot and you hunt, and when you say 200 yards, there's some people that'll be like, that's a long ways off. If you're standing up there, I could see your white shirt, I could see your tan neckline, your beard, and your hat. If it's all one color, basically. I don't know how did she get the nickname Squirrel?
Oh my gosh, we go through this every 3 episodes.
Let me finish the story.
You're the one that put the question up or put the thing up.
Because it was funny.
Anyway, 200 yards, you can make out the differences and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, and the biggest thing, first thing you notice is the size, and then you notice the movement. If we're hunting and you look up and see a dog at 300 yards, you're going to say that's a coyote.
That's a dog.
But way move, if it's a dog, it looks like a dog, but it's moving like a coyote, you're going to say that's a coyote because of the way it's moving.
Sure.
They have a different movement. Some animals have a different movement. You know your deer move it different depending on the pressure, what's going on. If they're relaxed, they move a little different way. And so anyway, I just knew it just wasn't moving like and now if I had never walked up that hill in that thick grass, I wouldn't have had that reference point. But when I saw it going where I had gone several times, it just didn't walk like I did. And like I said before, I can't tell you if the arms were at the knees or if the legs were shorter than the torso. I just knew at that age, this thing is not right. You know what I mean? If I saw my uncle walking up there, and I would know it was him by how he walked. My dad's the same way. My neighbor. I'm sure we talked about our hips and stuff. I've got a little limp. My family probably knows how I walk.
Well, and I think, didn't you make a point? You made a point on one of your shows where you were talking about, whenever a hunter tells you, when a hunter is describing something, a lot of times, really, if you are a hunter, you're going to give them a little bit more credence because you know what it's like to be out there stalking an animal and to pay attention to stuff like that. You do look for different details, different sounds, different smells, different tracks, the way something moves and everything. So when a hunter tells you something like, hey, I saw something, and I don't know what it was. When people go, oh, it was misidentification, oh, it was a bear. I can tell you what a damn bear looks like and the way a bear moves and everything. I promise you, if I'm telling you it's an upright thing walking and it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a bear because I know what a bear looks like.
You remember talked about the mountain lion before we went on. Well, I was working this lady in Nashville on the news. She had heard about them. We got in contact. She got in contact with me. And so I gave her some questions to ask. I said, the TWRA has this canned response. And every time I talk to one, it's word for word, exactly the same. So she was talking to the sheriff at the Giles County, the next county over, and he had seen a mountain lion, and his dog was laying at his feet during this interview. And she said, what do you say about the people who said it's a misidentification that it's probably a dog or something? He looked at her, he looked down, he said, that's a dog. Like, don't be telling. And my favorite one was like, well, you sure it wasn't a bobcat? I'm like, well, do bobcat have tails? No, I said, well, this tail on this cat was longer than a bobcat.
Yeah.
So, they rules that out.
I've personally seen one, and I promise you, the first time I saw it, having never seen one in person before, there was no doubt in my mind what it was, and I was just seeing the silhouette. It was too dark, but the way that it moved with those shoulder blades and that tail,
and that
that
back,
tail, the
that
tail,
back,
yeah, the tail's as long as it is,
and
with
it drops down and comes back
No.
up. Yep.
I watched
There's-
one walk across the field over here, and I live in a rural area, and my husband pretty much told me I was crazy. I did not see no daggone mountain lion walk through the field. 2 weeks later, we seen on Facebook, people were seeing them all around our house right here. And then he sees it twice out in the field. And I said, now, am I crazy? Because, I mean, you know, when you see one, like you said, you can tell by the way it walks and by the way its tail curves.
They're not supposed to be in Virginia. Virginia says that they're not here. And then one of my customers about a month later had a picture of one laying in a tree on a branch. Shut up.
Hey, I'm from Tennessee. I like that Alabama white sauce too. I used to work down in Decatur, so Big Gibson.
Outnumbered, Spencer.
not
gonna get your input on where to eat if I ever come to your neck of the woods. That's for sure.
Well, you got to put it on. You got to put it on with a mop. You can't use anything else. I've seen them do that. You know, I hope they use it for other things, but
I've seen them do it too. That still don't make it edible, and it don't make the barbecue sauce.
I figured that's what Greg was going to fix for us whenever we come up. Some Alabama white sauce.
He probably will. He probably will. Well, anyway, Roger, you've been doing this a while. What do you suppose boogers are? What do you think they are? Just your opinion.
Almost everything that's happened to me has been out. You know, they ask flesh and blood or the woo or whatever that is, and I'm like 80, 85, 90% flesh and blood with an open mind.
Right.
Because I've seen things. You know, I did a show the other night with a buddy, and I got to talk about some of our ghost stories and stuff like that. And at a young age, and I'm gonna sound crazy here, and it's not every day. It's, thank God, I've had things happen. I've seen things, and my wife and I saw that orb, but it was like a more of a it's hard to explain. It was odd shape, but it pulsated a little bit. It was like 20 minutes, and we got a really good look at it. And it gradually went away. But now I've had just enough happen that I got to keep an open mind, because I can't rightly sit here and tell Misty, like, no, you didn't see that. When I'm sitting, just the same thing about the troll. If I had something happen paranormal to me back in the day, then I can't say somebody else didn't have this experience out in the woods or whatever. So I got an open mind with it. Now, my son, knowing how observant he is, the day that we had all that happening to us, it was overcast. It had drizzled rain. We got all this on video, but he was watching our back too. And he said, "Daddy, you might think I'm crazy, but I just saw something wavy looking about 20 yards back, 25 yards back." He said it crossed from left to right. And he said the reason he noticed it, it crossed, there was a tree behind it, and the tree went a little blurry for a second. And so we had this going on in front of us, and he said, "You're going to think I'm crazy," but he was scared. He won't go back. He won't do that with me again at that spot, because we had so much happening. So I've got to take him at his word. And then later, when there was a tree a few days later that had fallen. And I was going to say this earlier, when that happened with my dog, when she hugged the ground and we left, when we come back a couple days later, we walked in, I'm looking around, and there are trees down everywhere, all blocking. We're stepping over them, not, just, and it's real rocky there. So the trees don't have the roots are not real deep in places. And there's some that are broken, that are half dead or whatever. And I asked him, I said, "Did we have a storm, last night or night before?" "No, why?" I said, this whole pathway was littered with fallen with logs, and they were all from there. You could tell where they came from. Like one had broken half and fell, and then the top had hit. And this is not like it was 2 days ago, and this is exactly where the interaction, whatever that was, with my dog happened. So when we went in, there was another tree, and you see it in this other video I've got on my channel. It had fallen, but the base of it was resting on the stump, and the top of it was caught by vines, the big thick vines. So it was suspended in there. It had been there forever like that. And I went back by myself. Well, my wife was out in the field. She didn't go back there. And I have the video. It's sunny and it's dry, and I'm going around looking, and the apples and the orange are still there. That's what I'm checking. No footprints or whatever. Nothing, nothing had been around. And I'm panning around, and for some reason, while I'm standing there, this tree falls, hits the ground. I'm like, it's time to go. You can hear me say, it's time to go. I'm getting out. Well, when we looked at the video, we went back and looked. Peyton was like, watch it fall. He said, did it fall or was it pulled down from the top end? And it flexed. It flexed a little bit down and up here, and then it started falling. So then we start looking for, okay, did a squirrel jump on it? Right? Did something cause this to happen? There's nothing there. And there was a couple shadows we looked at. Oh, that's from this vine that's hanging. And we went through this video just as good as we could. Well, he had sent me a screenshot of showing that the as I walked in, the tree was there and stable. So he sent a screenshot and he said, hey, that tree was up, and it was, something moved at or whatever. And he said, this is at this timestamp. Well, when I looked at it and I pulled it up, I was like, oh, crap. There was this blur. Now, the tree wasn't blurred, but everything behind the tree, you can see the tree clearly. But behind that tree, looks like a curtain of blur. And there's a face. Maybe pareidolia. 99% it probably is. But before the tree fell, there's a huge head. You can see the nose, the nostrils, the eyes. You can, and I was like, oh my God. I circled it and sent it to him, and he about freaked out. And I've got that picture. Now, 99% is probably pareidolia. It's probably something to do with the camera, pixelating or whatever. But it's awful strange. It's in the same area where he saw the blur move behind us, and that tree fell, and it looks like this thing had to be at the top of its head. It would have to been about 11 foot tall, 10 to 11. That's large, wide head, and you can, if you look, you don't even have to strain to look at it. It's like it's looking back at you, and it's above the tree trunk, and that scared us. And I've shown it to people, when I show it to you, you can, you make your own judgment. I've had people say, well, it was the energy from this. I don't know about that. And I'm not saying what it was, but it's cool in a way and it's scary in another way. So, but anyway, that picture itself kind of freaked him out too again. And like I said, who knows what it is?
Now, was the picture, did you take a picture, or is it a clip from a video?
It's a clip from the video. So what he did, he just randomly, as the video was rolling, he just screenshot it because he was wanting to show. We were back and forth. He said, look, this tree is still there when you walk in.
Right.
And it's in this position. Look at it at this timestamp. And he didn't see that. He sent it to me. That's the first thing I saw.
My point would be, if you've got a video, if there's 1 second where you can see a possible face, Is it there the next second, the second after? Do you see it move? Do you see it go away?
I'm gonna tell you what. Of course, when you see something like that, you go back and look at the video, back
Yeah.
and back and forth, back and forth. You can't see it. You can't see it at all. It's not blurred out. It's not. He just happened to screenshot it at this right spot, and it's now. If you watch the YouTube video, depending on your Wi-Fi, it will pixelate a little bit until it catches up or whatever. I don't know how that works, but on the original, it didn't come from the original that's on my phone, so it could have been somewhere in that. But in the video, once the video starts and it's clear, I went back, I don't know, 30, 40 times. I don't know, it's a lot, trying to find that spot that, where it would be at. I can't find it.
What do you think whenever you were saying you're 80-90% flesh and blood, but you got to keep an open mind to the other stuff? What do you think about the possibility that these things are flesh and blood? They just have some kind of extra abilities that we don't understand. I mean, realistically, in my opinion anyway, you got people talking about their Nephilim. If they are Nephilim, then they've got all kinds of angelic, spiritual, God-given abilities, or devil-given, demonic, whatever way you want to call it. They've got abilities that human people don't have. But I mean, like, me personally, I think Native Americans, they were probably way more in touch with the land and nature and everything, and probably understood stuff better than we do nowadays with our heads buried in cell phones and everything. A lot of the stuff that they could probably predict, or the way that they behave, some of the stuff that they could do would probably seem uncanny or mystical to us. I mean, so whenever you say 80-90%, I've had batteries drained. I've seen weird stuff with electrical things. You've had your phone just start talking to you and cameras blur and everything. Do you think that it's something physical with, extra abilities? Or do you think, hey, maybe there really is a chance that it's something supernatural, other dimensional, We
Well,
think.
all right, let's start with the infrasound. I watched the thing where a line, they were measuring it, and this guy walked in, and they were showing that he was
Sorry.
doing, and so
What
if
are you doing?
I'm fixing it.
Carry on, Roger. Carry on.
No, it's just infrasound sounds crazy.
Yeah, but other animals do infrasound.
They can measure it. We just can't hear it, but we can feel it. And
Yeah.
So that sounds crazy to somebody that's never heard it before. I mean, even some of this stuff in nature that glows, some of the fungus and some of the
Foxfire.
yeah, and
Or jack-o'-lantern mushrooms.
even lightning bugs. I mean, we see lightning bugs, but how can you explain a lightning bug? I mean, so what if let's go the easiest explanation that may be totally wrong. What if they can make a
razor?
Right. What if they can't emit a sound? Some people say they use sound vibrations to build Stonehenge and the Easter Island, lift those, and the pyramids. And what if they can emit a sound that messes with your phone or your electronics or whatever? But that's the simplest.
That's the government, Judy Williams.
Yeah, I know. But okay, so I watched this. I think it was David Pilates, Missing 401, the hunter.
Yeah.
Did you see the lady towards the end that took the picture?
Yeah.
And they went in, and that camera took a picture in a format that it wasn't possible for it to take a picture in.
Well, there was a female hunter. I forget what documentary it was on. There was a female hunter that was hunting on land behind her house, and something about she was close to a school where
Yeah.
they had seen a UFO before or something like that. But anyway,
They saw a UFO while she was in the stand.
well, she saw some kind of predator thing,
Right.
like the predator camo,
Yep.
moving from the trees.
That was David Pilates. Yep. And
Yeah.
so you watch something like that, and it seems credible.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. Do y'all remember just a couple years ago in Cuba, I think it was, we had some kind of big meeting with world diplomats, and a couple of the guys from the U.S. got so sick going there, and they had to go to the hospital or whatnot, and it was most likely infrasound. I mean, governments have this stuff as weapons, sound weapons. There's no doubt about it. Now Kumbo is a person to talk to on this. I've heard him talk about it. Something about doing the ultra low frequency and hitting it with ultra high frequency to like steer it. And I mean, but infrasound is real. It's producible.
It's measurable.
Other animals do it. I have long said that if an animal can produce infrasound and it can jog your brain and your organs, there's no telling how it might make you feel or what it might make you think that you're seeing or whatnot. But there's a difference between that and supernatural stuff.
Right.
There's a difference. That's still natural, you know? Well, anyway.
Well, but that was, that would be my simplest, like, okay, if it is something, it could be that. But when you start talking about the other, it opens up all these different, I don't want to say rabbit hole.
Well, it is a rabbit hole, though. You can go anywhere with it.
Right. Exactly.
As soon as you accept supernatural, anything's possible. There is no limits. You can go anywhere with it.
So what we do know is everything around us, our thoughts, it's all energy.
Yeah.
So other types of energy could mess with energy, right? I would think.
100%.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm an empath or anything like that, but I feel when people are sad or when something's going on, I can handle it myself. But sometimes I just feel so drained. I have to get away and have a day or two to just kind of get my mind clear and do something else. Even with this stuff, when I jumped into it, I got my story told. I was talking 100 miles an hour, trying to get it all out. And then I started meeting these people and hearing their stories. And then I was going looking at this and watching that and watching Bama Murdoch on your show. And just, I got so immersed in all that stuff. I got just worn down.
Yeah.
I had to take a break for probably about a week or so. And I have to do that, every now and then because it can be too much. But I've got my gut feeling on this is there's something more to this than just flesh and blood. And it could be this. What about in the Pacific Northwest? They have some paranormal going on. What about in Oklahoma? They might not. Maybe it's different, different. Because if you're going to tell me that somehow 5 toes, somehow 6, somehow 4, somehow 3, that's not the same animal to me.
I mean, I could see that with like inbreeding, especially if the population was small or whatnot. I could also see, let's take into consideration that something that I believe, I mean, I don't have proof of this, but something that can easily go bipedal to quadrupedal, movement wise, they probably really do. The mid-tarsal break that Dr. Meldrum talks about a lot of times is to make the feet be able to flex at a different angle than what we can really do. If their feet are that flexible, a lot of the 4-toe tracks might possibly be a five-toed animal where one of the toes is like displaced or sticking up while they're making the movement.
Right.
Also, living in the woods constantly, it's possible damage like the very famous what's the track called where it's Cripplefoot, I
Right.
think is what it's called, where it's got the, all the
Deformed.
breaks in it and everything. Right. Yeah. So,
well,
I don't know.
When you bring up the foot, I want to ask, I'll never get to see an expert probably. But if I sat down in front of Dr. Meldrum right now and I had his attention for 1 minute, my question I would ask him from my experience, would that flexible foot with that mid-tarsal break allow an animal that large to walk up a hill that I walked up, not have as much body lean? Because we have to lean. It puts pressure on your Achilles when you lean. You have to lean forward and all this. And would that allow that leg motion to be able to go straight up and over, and then it has that flex bend in it? Would that would make a different gait? I would think.
You would think, like what you were saying, it puts pressure on your Achilles tendon because your body's leaning forward. It's like doing a calf stretch.
Exactly.
You can only lean if your foot is flat. You can only lean so far forward because of stretching that tendon. Well, what if your foot wasn't flat? What if, like, the difference between a plantigrade and digitigrade foot, like what people talk about with Dogman, where they're talking about the front portion of the foot like a dog's foot, and then the heel actually comes up. So the strain on their leg, if their heel is up here at an angle, the strain on their leg is very minimal. So if something could bend its foot like that, if the whole foot could flex in the middle like that, you would think so. But also something bigger. And if you look at the Patterson-Gimlin film, the way that the thing walks, it almost does swing its legs out to the side. And just the gait, the whole gait is completely different. But so we don't really know what we're dealing with.
So 100%. That would maybe, that being on relatively flat ground with no brush or whatever, when you when you walk on asphalt, you can walk a little different than you walk in the grass. You have to use your muscles a little different, right?
Yeah.
You have to pick it up or whatever. So what if on the surface like that, maybe it does come out just a little to the side and all that. Maybe that's the easiest way for its muscles and its shape of its body and the frame to actually get along. But when it started up this hill and having to step over, what if it's too big, or where the foot's designed to bring that up and over, and it's just easier on it to do the mechanics? I don't.
Well, again, at the same time, though, if you talk about, like, for example, a silverback gorilla that whenever it stands up is 5 foot something but weighs about 400 pounds, that's a lot of mass, right? So 6.5, 7 foot, I mean, hypothetically, a 7-foot booger could be every bit of 600-700 pounds. 8-foot booger, again, could possibly be more. Just sheer force, inertia, momentum. Stuff like the grass growing together in thorn thickets, stuff that would stop you and I. You and I are 200 pounds, 225 pounds. If you're talking about an animal that's 800 pounds, I mean, just sheer force. Maybe it doesn't really even have to change the way it walks. Maybe, just that amount of mass.
And it could have, now at that distance, it could have had a little bit of that. And I just didn't see that. It could have been a little bit of this, but it wasn't as bad as what I was doing. I did notice that. So, yeah. Mike, while you're talking, I'm going through like Mike's story. I remember one thing he said. It stood in front of him and it was kind of swaying back and forth, a little bit. He said it never locked its knees.
Yeah,
and with that amount of weight, it probably Yes, I don't know if I've heard all these different amounts of
Six
toes.
Toes gets into the giants from biblical times stuff.
But
Anyway,
he was talking about, look at chickens. Chickens got 4 toes. Well, silky breeds have 5 toes. They have 2 toes on. I mean, and they're a chicken, but they're a totally different breed. So, I mean, it's very possible that it could be, just different types. Like they say, the 3 or 4 different kinds. I can't even think right now, but where there's A, B, and C or something.
Yeah, I think there's 4 different kinds: type A, B, C, and D, or whatever. But
I'll be
type
back
1,
about
2, 3, 4.
Okay, I got to go for about a minute.
Oh, no, go ahead.
All right, y'all.
Go ahead. Wait, what time is it? We're not even at 2 hours. Bushcraft family, hey, what's up, buddy?
I got you something saved while he's gone. I figured out how to save the comments, by the way. If you click the little star up in the corner, it puts them up in the corner. So,
oh, really?
Earlier, when Ben made his comment, Charlie's on your side. So there you go.
Hey, Team Spence is up to like a whole 14 or 15 people now. Have y'all ever camped out? Who are they talking about? Can we have
no, Bama, trust me, that's not. It's better in your head. Just keep it that way.
Bam Bam.
And all the guests.
During the summer, have to wear a bikini also.
Yeah, and then Greg said they don't have a cape made from camel beef like I do. We were talking about that last night. That was so freaking fun.
I'm telling y'all, if y'all were friends with some of these assholes and getting bombarded with text messages at 11:30 at night, and Greg in the camo towel, that was pretty good, actually.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, Roger, sorry, we had to fill airtime while you were gone.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I can go for another 2-3 hours now.
No, you can't. I got stuff I got to do.
Yeah, when you have a sighting or whatever, and you have some experiences.
He talked about the orbs, Barry.
Yeah,
but we'll get him to go.
Saved.
We'll get him to go back into that in a little more detail because he covered it real quick.
Yeah, I have heard since then that they do go together with what I've heard people say, and this particular piece of land where we had that huff and growl and the boulder toss and the footfalls and all this stuff. There was an old
shut up, Robert.
There was an old mill, probably in the late 1800s there. I don't think there's ever been any houses, but when we get something always strange happens. Like I've been there during the day, and we're talking about no houses around at all. And I heard a woman laughing one time. I've heard that twice. It's an eerie laugh. And it sounded like a woman laughing, cackling, and then I hear people talking about sometimes they hear that stuff. And I'm glad I didn't know. Bama seemed like he'd be cool to hang out with. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, he seems cooler than he is. Keep going.
Okay, yeah.
He's jealous, Bama.
I love the way he tells. I love the way he tells stories. Like, I mean, I caught myself just kind of leaning in, like, just. It's like you're sitting there with him,
He can tell a story. Bama can tell a story. Bama is one of the best people ever for like doing a pocket. His voice, his drawl, his pauses. He can tell a story for a fact.
His timing is awesome. And
yes,
but like I said, it's just same thing talking to a hunter. When a hunter tells their story, they're trying to put you there with them, and what the smells, the temperature, and you're welcome. Now my son likes Greg. I hate to, I think when he showed his, I think he said he had some deer mounts or something in the room, and
Oh my gosh, he's
yeah,
got a bunch. He's got a killer set up
he,
there.
he said you got to watch Greg. I said I think I've watched them all. I just don't know everybody's names yet, but yeah, but you know, and sometimes a story might go a little too long if we're telling it to regular people. But I'm a hunter, so I'm listening to everything because you can learn some things from uh if it's just a deer hunting story or whatever, you
Right.
know, and it's that's one of the most fun parts of hunting, I think, is the retelling of the experience. You sit around a fire and tell, you're talking about that squirrel or that owl or whatever. uh there's some strange things out there, just normal stuff, but um and 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 I love people like Bama, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Bama, you can tell he doesn't care what you think. He's telling you what he saw, what he
Right.
heard, what he felt, you know. And if you don't like it, you can kick rocks, you know. So I didn't want to go to LBL. I'll just be honest with you. I heard everybody talking about going to LBL. I've been through there. We drove through. Um, but after hearing him tell his story, I'm kind of considering it
Oh
now.
yeah.
You
LBL is awesome. It's one of my favorite places.
Yes.
know, it's about. I think I can be there in a little under 3 hours. I think.
That's way better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trek for you.
I drive 10 hours to get there, but it's worth it. LBL is awesome. Some you were talking about with hearing the cackling and stuff out in the woods. That's another point. Makes you wonder if there aren't areas that just draw high strangeness, or if something's up with the people that draws you to areas of high strangeness where other stuff is there. You ever
I
think about that?
Well, let me. I want to tell you a quick story. I do at times feel drawn to areas, things, situations. So much so that last 2 Aprils ago, I the year before that we had gone to Wyoming, and I never had been out west, and I fell in absolute love with Wyoming and that area because I just felt free. There was hardly any people. It was wide open. Just I've never had a feeling like that. So we decided to go back last year, and when you like stuff like this, you find yourself watching TV shows for entertainment,
Yeah.
and so me and my wife, we were watching Skinwalker Ranch. So I looked it up to see where it was at, and on our way, instead of going the same way we went through Colorado and up in that corner of Utah, and we drove up to the front gate of Skinwalker Ranch, and it wasn't anything. I don't know. I was just kind of drawn to it, But then there you go. You talk about the Native American aspect. I've got Cherokee on both sides of my family, and my son and I, we're in North Carolina, Cherokee, North Carolina, 2015, I think, or maybe it's earlier than that, maybe 14. And we went walking, and we saw this trail, and we just took off. We ran up on this lady, and she had her son and his wife, and they were walking the baby out, out there is what she told me. But the reason I stopped and talked to her, she had gray eyes. And my grandmother, great grandmother, from the 1780s and 90s, her name was Lydia Gray Eyes. And she's full-blooded Cherokee and married Edward Jett, or maybe that was her son. I get confused. But anyway, I asked her about the gray eyes, and she said that people with gray eyes are in their culture considered to be more open to these things that we're talking about. And when I said I read that my great grandmother, her name was Lydia Gray Eyes. This woman looked dead in my eyes and said, she smiled and she said, she's always known who you are. And that was the creepiest
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the woods next to a river. My son, he's got a poker face from hell because it flipped him out. And he didn't flinch. We got to the truck. He said, "What the crap?" He said, "I about ran when she said that." It wasn't what she said; it was how she said it.
Right.
And
So
it sends chills all over you, I'm sure.
and I learned more about that side of my family that I never knew through her in about 30, 45 minutes in the woods. While we went down that trail, I don't know. Nobody was there. They were looking at the stuff that they had for the tourists. Me and him look around and say, "Anybody looking?" "No, let's go." We took off. We're on Cherokee land, you know. And
I have never heard you. Yeah, you stop, Misty. I have never heard you talk about this, and I would like to hear about that.
oh wow, yeah.
That's like the time. There was one time at LBL, I could have sworn we were out at this road that dead ended at a cemetery. I don't know where it was, and I could have sworn I heard like little kids whispering in the woods, and I was holding my recorder out there. And when I got back and checked it, at that point, my recorder just goes all to static. Can't hear anything. There ain't no whispering on the recorder. But I could have swore I heard it, that gave me the creeps. That was creepy.
So, I mean, and the first thing when you hear something, either you don't think you're supposed to, or you don't identify. You're trying to figure out what it is. First thing you're trying to do is where's it coming from? What direction is it? Where and is it between me and the car?
Right.
but and that's like when I saw the Bigfoot that time. I don't know if I was naive or whatever, because I've heard now, like when Greg told his story, how fast they are, and Mike told the same thing when they get down on all fours and run. I felt comfortable because of the distance between us. I wasn't really that afraid. I was shocked and I was puzzled, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it. But I wasn't scared, and I might have should have been. I think that distance gave me a false sense of security. My little fat tail, I probably couldn't have made it to the back door, but I thought I could, Now
Yeah.
Hearing how fast they are, it's just, and that's what happened to Mike. I've went over in my head I've heard him tell that, several times.
Yeah.
He just, when that thing, I think they got in a bad spot. I think that alpha male come looking, see what it was. He realized it was a human. Mike didn't know what it was. He realized it's a Bigfoot. Now they're like, what do we do now? And then Mike's thinking about shooting it. The thing knows it. And so to get away, it caused a distraction. It screamed at him. Have you ever heard a speaker turn on? It just vibrates your eyeballs, and your vision, been to a concert. Maybe that happens, or you're walking. That I believe that was a diversion, because it knew it was going to scream at him and then turn and run. Well, when it screamed at him, he froze and just stood there and watched it run off away from him. So I think they both got in a bad situation. They realized what was going on, and this thing took a chance, turned its back on him, and got away. Then I believe it was creating a diversion for the others that were in the area by tearing up the bushes and throwing and screaming. Maybe it was mad. I don't know. That's just my assessment of what was going on. But just listening to, I don't know if I've heard anybody else with that. There's one other guy that had a close up, but he wasn't as terrifying as that. There's a local guy that I've known all my life, and he told me the story because I had told mine. When you went through Mike's shows, did you see the guy Kevin?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so I'll make this quick. Kevin and his brother, they were about 12 and 13. They were coming back from fishing. And the farmer that his dad rented from told them to keep an eye out because he had some calves missing. And they're like, all right. So they're coming back and they hear a calf bawling.
Yeah, I heard this.
Yeah. And so what it was, they walked over there and it was a Bigfoot trying to pull that calf through a fence.
Yeah.
Or pick it or whatever. Well, so Kevin told that story. Well, his brother was at my house doing some HVAC work, actually. And I'd heard the story from Kevin a couple times. And I said, Eric, I got something to ask you. And I asked him, and he went off. I wished he'd quit doing that crap. He said, everybody thinks I'm nuts anyway. Then he'll call us, hey, tell them what you saw, And he's like,
correct.
and I said, look, I don't think you're crazy because I've seen one too. I just asking you what you saw that day.
Right.
Well, Eric, his reaction to it, he said when it turned and he said it's made some kind of noise, and that's when Kevin saw his teeth. He said, I ran. He said, I'm running. I just assumed Kevin's behind me. And Eric's the younger brother. He said, I ran a long ways and I turned around. He said, I turned back around and Kevin's dumb ass is still up there looking at him. He said, he said, then I just turned around and took off running. So that to me, that confirmed what Kevin had told us, that he got the closer look and it scared Eric enough, but they both said similar things. I asked them about, because I knew they continued to hunt and fish. And I said, did that change anything? And Kevin made a statement. He said, well, the way I figured it was, if he's there, he's always been there and he ain't never bothered me before. And I didn't want to let that ruin something,
Right.
So,
well, but then we've come full circle. Is how many times have they been right there whenever you've been out there, you just didn't know it. Once you know it, you're worried about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is, if the damn things are there now, they were there whenever we were kids, whenever we were younger. And how many times you go hunting, fishing, camping, nothing ever happened to you?
I used to walk out of the woods without a flashlight or into the woods. I knew where I wouldn't do that now for anything. But and then you look back at things that happened to you. I built this tree stand and I don't weld or anything. I took a metal shop back in the day and I did make a tree stand out of some old bleacher material, and I didn't have a 4-wheeler, so I used it had, when you pull the bleachers out, it rolls. It has the wheels on it. Well, I found me 2 of those that had wheels on it, and I thought, well, I can haul this in on my back, and I can pull. It sounded a lot easier. This damn thing weighed so much when I got done with it. There I am hauling this thing in. I got it put up. I'm watching this field. It's sage grass out there, but it's one of those small fields that are just in the middle of nowhere, woods surrounding it, And I thought, I was trails everywhere. I had permission to go over there, and it was a long walk, and it was probably maybe a half a mile from where I saw the Bigfoot. So, but and we know that's not any distance at all. But
right,
I get this thing put up, and the first day I'm hunting in it, I get up. It's before daylight. This way and this that way, and it was so uncomfortable. It was horrible. My legs are falling asleep. I get I think it was 17 does walked under it. I mean, got daylight, here they come, and I'm looking right down at them. And they get out in the field, and I know I can't move because the lead doe, she's looking around, and she knows something's up, and they get across the fence there, and the last one hops the fence. And I'm like, I can move my leg now because I can't feel my feet, and the blood circulation's cut off. And I slid my leg, and something took off behind me that absolutely was huge. But the only thing that makes me, I remember it happening, and I remember the reason I was back there. There was a big buck back there. I got to thinking about it. So I wonder if that was something else. And then I remember hearing the hooves hit the rocks as it ran through the thick stuff, So I questioned that, and I'm like, no, that was a deer or something, But a lot of people wouldn't pay attention to that part. I did actually hear the hooves when it made something
clack.
Yeah. So it wasn't a soft foot, but it made me. But the thing is, once I started hearing these stories and having these experiences, I went back and questioned that, and I'm like, no, that was a deer.
Well, and if a deer could get that close to you without you knowing it was there, what does it take for the thing that hunts deer to get up on a deer? I mean, that's a whole different skill set, where you're up a different level at that point.
Well, and you hear this. Well, Bigfoot's so big, he couldn't sneak up on you. I've seen deer walk in dry leaves that I just come through, and everybody in the neighborhood or the whole county knew through there and walk through and never make a noise.
I've seen a 300-pound bear move down a damn mountainside at probably 25 miles per hour and didn't make a sound. I mean,
well, I love it. I love it when people these couch investigators or these people that are just trolls, they say stuff like that like it's a fact, and I'm like, I'm telling you, I've seen one. I tell you, I had these experiences, and I still can't prove it to anybody, and I'm not worried about that. It's just if I tell my story, I told you, I think that we're pieces of a puzzle. All of us are, and I hear your story, and I hear this story, and maybe we can figure out some things. I don't know.
It's Roger Debbie Jones.
No, it's Mike. Apparently,
we put your comment up on the dang channel.
She called me Mike earlier. Don't feel bad.
Look, Larry and Debbie don't want to engage in chat. They're just listening to the show in the background.
Oh me.
Anyway, we've been about 2 hours in now. Apparently, everybody fusses at me if I go over 2 hours. They're like, "Why do you make the shows so long?" Some shows have to go long, people. But anyway, Squirrel. What are you doing?
Sir.
Typing.
She got like a blank look on her face. I don't know what she's doing.
It takes look. I have to concentrate when I'm doing something.
I bet.
I'm telling Debbie just to ignore you, but they ain't no use in typing.
She was doing that on the slide. You caught her.
You just ignore him, Debbie, because
everybody. Debbie already knows to ignore me.
Throw everybody under the bus because he screwed up.
But I'm gonna tell y'all something though. Mike told me, "Hey, you gotta go check these people out." I'm like, all right, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And I mean, the first 15 or 20 minutes, I was like Spencer said earlier, these seem like my people because you're talking about a serious subject, but lightheartedly, but and I enjoy the humor because I grew up in a family. We picked with each other. It was horrible. And if you're out in public, they would think you hated each other, Yeah, I'm going to try to get some more stuff on there. But I got to get some better equipment, and I've come to the conclusion, I'm not going to get anything on video that's, with my stuff, No. I was so tickled to get that first series of sounds because we could go back to the truck and say, we got it, and it's there. We heard what we heard, and regardless of anybody else, but I'm going to tell you something. The people that we have shown, and I live in Tennessee. I don't have bears like you have over there, Misty. Now we have a random bear every now and then that might come from relocating. But so the funny thing is, the people that we've shown this to, and they've had the headphones in, none of them say Bigfoot. Nobody has said that, but everybody has said something like this large mammal, like that's not here. That sounds like a lion. That sounds like a big elephant. That sounds like
it's
I'm
big.
Like, I'm like, but it's all big. Standing there, here's what it sounded like. It sounded like something picked up a log. You know how if you're playing softball and you're trying to knock one out of the park and you kind of grunt when you come through and make contact with the ball, or these tennis players, they're exerting all this energy. It sounded like something picked up a log after we listened to it, and it sounds like it exerting this energy, like, ugh, and then this air comes out these two nostrils. That's just, I can't explain it. It's just so big. I've heard lions at the zoo. I've heard, it was such a volume of air that I could just picture the nostrils, and it made a huff, growl, grunt, all like in succession, while it was something that was mad. And then after that, I said what I said, and it did. Something cracked. Like it sounded like a green sapling snapping. And now in the video, you can see where I think we might be in trouble because it is so close. I was like, okay, Peyton, clear your mind, and he actually set his rifle down. You can kind of get a glimpse of it in the video. And I said out loud, we're not here to hurt you, and we don't want to get hurt either. We're just leaving. I don't remember exactly what I said. We're just leaving this here, blah, blah, blah. When I said that, whether it might have been a thing where it made me feel better, but I felt better. I didn't say this to Peyton, but I asked him, what are you feeling right now? He said, it feels like the feel of the woods changed as you finished that. I said, I agree with you. So I started taking the hoe and scraping the leaves out and continued what we were doing. We heard one little crack after that and then nothing. So I do not know.
Roger, your son ain't there right now, is he?
No, he's not. It's his girlfriend's birthday, so they're
I would rather for people to hear him say it. So y'all got to go on Red Creek Mafia, Mike Bluler's channel, to see Roger's interview where his son talks about something that he saw in the road. And it's not Bigfoot, but it is creepy. It is creepy.
He works for a company now that works at the Jack Daniel's distillery. And he's got a new group of guys he's around, and there's a guy, he's Native American. He asked him, he said, it was after he told that story, of course. He asked him if he had ever heard anything that in legend or whatever. And he said the older man looked at him. He said, do you know what that is or could be? He said, yes, I do. And you better not, you shouldn't ever speak of it again. And he turned around and walked off. So,
really?
Yeah. So I said, so you didn't get an answer? He said, no, he left. He said, don't speak again.
He's like, don't even talk. It's like Voldemort. Don't even say it.
Yep.
Y'all go to Red Creek Mafia, and I don't know what episode it is. It's probably what episode were you, Roger? Number
about
2,
third,
number 3?
About third, maybe. And it's got the same pictures you used.
Yeah, and go to Roger's episode, whatever it is, the second, third, fourth one. It's somewhere right in there, and watch that. First of all, it's a good interview, and you ought to watch it on its own. But the part where his son Peyton talks about what he and his friend saw crossing the road, that's some freaky, creepy stuff.
Well, that's what he goes back to sometimes when people talk about things. He said, I got to thinking about it. Some of the stuff that we've experienced and some of the shit that I've seen, he said most people would have flipped out, but he had it. His friend that was with him is so straight-laced, such a good kid, and he's.
Thank you, Cashew.
Thank you. But see, I like joking around and BSing, but when it comes time to be serious,
Me too.
This kid that he was with, I've known his dad all my life, and Peyton, what he saw, I won't go into it, but what he saw. So his first reaction was to turn to him and ask him, because his friend said, "What the hell?" or something like that.
He said, "What did you see?"
Yeah, what did you see? He wanted to hear,
yeah.
And he told him exactly the same thing. So now he's confirmed that he's what he said. I confirmed that I wasn't crazy, because it was some wild.
That is freaky. It's chilling. The way that it ends, where it's like it just turned into. That is freaky.
Now let me give you the next part of that story.
Yeah.
Not long after that happened, his granddaddy on his mama's side passed away, and one of his favorite uncles on his mama's side died suddenly in a car accident. So I didn't tell him this. I researched some of it and said it might be a bad omen, or I don't know if I believe in that stuff, but like I said, I got an open mind, and he saw it, so I didn't even tell him. Like a a harbinger of death or some shit, you know. And but it did. It was soon after that happened.
I didn't see it, so I've got to go ahead and ask because I can't.
Everybody, yeah. Oh, look.
Did you think it was like a Wendigo or something?
No. You got to go watch. You got to go watch. If his son was there, I would really want him to tell it because it is creepy.
Yeah.
It's just creepy.
And
Shifter.
But you got to go. No, I'm not. Go watch the episode. Everybody go watch it. I'll tell you this. There's his son sees something. The description of it is normal, and then it becomes really weird, and then the way it leaves is like just freaking spooky. And it's something about the way that he describes it just sent chills through me. I mean, it's just eerie. It's really, really weird.
Because when he was asked to come on, look, y'all, he's not an attention-seeking person, and I'll tell you this story quickly. He was in Sports Illustrated for his football, and he was being recruited by a lot of people, and he got injured. He was included in a story with Peyton Manning. Oh, wow. The Sports Illustrated come to us and whatever. I was excited. My dad was excited. Peyton's like, whatever. He was like 15 or 16, you know. And then, so he didn't even tell his friends that he was in Sports Illustrated.
Hey, and Scott.
One of the other linebackers came to him and said, "You got something to talk to me about?" He said, "What?" He said, I got a subscription to Sports Illustrated, and I open up the magazine, and your stupid ass is in there." He said, "You ain't let us know." he said, you know, he ain't about all that. So him coming on camera because Mike's invited him to even like co-host or tell whatever. He said, I don't want to do that. He's not, you know, right. And he wasn't there to do that night. He just happened to be there.
No, he wasn't. You could tell. You could tell in the interview. You just asked him, "Hey, you want to talk about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can."
And the reason Mike knew about it, when we had first met and we were talking, he called one day and we were in the car. We were coming back from a walkabout, we call it sometimes, on that farm in the south end. And I said, you know, he saw some weird crap one night, and Peyton told him privately in the car on the speakerphone. And we'd had no idea he was going to do that. But yeah, but you know, there's people in this world that you trust with your, you know.
I'd like to hear what those are, Jesse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, all right, y'all, we have been over 2 hours now. Go check out that episode on Red Creek Mafia. And also, just so you know, Mark Green was on Red Creek Mafia just a couple days ago. And Mike Bluler's channel, Red Creek Mafia, is going to start doing some shows on Sunday. So, like, right after this, we're going to turn Sunday into the whole, like, realistic Bigfoot day on YouTube and everything. Y'all get, like, 5 hours of back-to-back coverage, apparently, at this point.
And I appreciate y'all. I mean,
no. You got anything else you want to wrap up on or touch on?
We could be here to Tuesday. Probably.
Oh, I know. Everybody that I get on here is like, man, I'll get you back on for part 2. There's too much. There's too many people out there.
And you know, you're the same as I am. I watch people, how they talk, how they tell things, how they explain things, and there are a lot. There's people out there that I would love to sit personally and listen to, because I'm learning this stuff. I said in reverse. I had things happen. The information wasn't out there, you know. And to me, getting the story out there, it's cool. But also it has triggered more stories coming my way, you know, and makes people feel more comfortable. So thank y'all. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry. I took a moment there. I was reading what people were saying. No, thank you, Roger, for being on. Maybe we'll have Roger on like a round table kind of discussion thing and get his input on some stuff in the future. I like real people. I like people that are just down to earth and just say what they saw and what they think it was and everything. And that's, the kind of people I try to get on here and everything.
I'd like to get a camera on some people just sitting on the back porch, relaxed, talking about stuff. You probably could catch, that would be amazing. But
we need to do a whole separate show where it's just like campfire cookout encounters, just like people sitting around a campfire shooting the shit and talking the way that they normally do, where everybody can get a feel for how a lot of people whenever they get on any kind of YouTube channel or whatnot, they get nervous and they don't, they don't talk like they normally would. They're not as relaxed. They don't get as, you know what I mean?
The first one, if they go watch that first one I was on, I was so damn nervous. You probably could tell. I'm more relaxed now, but I was trying to get everything out. It was so it was scary for the first time, but I also was trying not to forget anything, and I was trying to get it all out. And it's just I went back and watched it, and I thought, damn, I need to slow down a little bit,
I'm nervous every week. It don't never get no better. So
Misty's naturally nervous. I naturally don't give a shit.
Because you're naturally an asshole.
Well, that could be. But anyway, yeah, we'll do some kind of campfire story. We'll probably do some kind of quick stream, maybe quick. You know me, it might be 3-4 hours. We'll probably do some kind of stream while we're down there at Greg's this coming week.
That's what Greg we should do is just sit around and just live stream.
It depends. It depends. There's a chance we'll have Mark Green there. Mark Newbill is going to be there. It's possible we end up getting to see Kumbo, a couple other people anyway, who will remain unknown right now. But we might end up doing some live while we're there, just so you can see everybody just hanging out and interacting or whatnot. So look for that. Don't know if it'll be Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Don't know. And then maybe this Sunday we might get on here and talk about whatever happens down there in Alabama, if anything does happen, but it probably won't. It's most likely just hanging out and shooting the shit and, seeing the area and everything. But I want to see it. And I mean, Greg's location is like in my, top 2-3 areas that I want to go see and everything.
Well, if y'all come down I-65, y'all be within 5 miles of my house at one point.
Well, one of us will be. I don't know if I will be.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, maybe next time we do something in Alabama, we hit you up and you can come join us down there.
I'll see if I can bring my son. He can tell that story.
Maybe we can get your son on here at some point to do it in person.
Maybe he's after he got that advice from the coworker, he's really not much. But
okay, well, I mean, I don't want to pressure him. I can understand that, but go back and what?
I mean, I will tell you this. I can tell he's already comfortable with y'all. He's watched a lot of y'all's videos and whatever, and I can tell when he talks about something that happened, he's okay. He's okay with it. So we might could be in a location like you said and have a camera on and get him to tell it, in that setting. I would think he probably would, but
well, tell him thank you for watching. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we try to treat everybody, any of y'all, if you have something, you haven't talked to somebody about it before, if you're nervous or whatnot, at least hit us up on the email and let us know what's going on. And I promise you, this is a no pressure kind of thing. If you want to come on, you want to talk about whatever, we'll do it. If you want to do it behind the scenes. And also, just so everybody knows, the StreamYard thing, this is how it goes whenever we're broadcasting on YouTube. But we can do it behind the scenes where it doesn't go on YouTube, and we can talk face to face just like this, literally, just like you're seeing it here now. And I've come to find out that this has been a very good tool. I mean, we've gotten to talk to a few people behind the scenes like this, and it works out really well. So if you just want to talk to us some way, shape, or form, email us and let us know, or put in the comments, hey, I'd like to go backstage and talk to you or whatnot, and we'll arrange it. Or if you want to talk to somebody else, if it's somebody that we know and we can put you in touch with, we'll do that too. But if you got something on your chest or something about Bigfoot or Dogman or anything supernatural or whatnot, let us know, people. And check out all the people that we like. I ain't going through it tonight. We need just like some kind of thing. What?
That's exactly what I was about to say. We need to just put it at the end or whatever. By the way, I thought you were fixing the thing, or is that Chris is gonna fix it? Ain't he? The new.
Chris is gonna fix. Chris.
Yeah,
Chris
I know who Chris
Reinhardt.
is. You tell him I hate him all the time.
Because you do.
I do
You
not.
could do it. You could do it like the Star Wars credits.
Yes.
If I did that, I'd play the Star Wars theme song also with it, because I'm a Star Wars fan. And then I'd get another on YouTube. On YouTube, I've got some kind of what's it called? They put some kind of thing on me where it's because I play the intro with the music. They put some kind of trademark thing.
I'm gonna tell you about that intro you got. I love it, but God bless, I have my headphones on a few times when that thing comes up, and it's rough.
I turn my computer down while it's playing.
And it's my fault because I've got it. I've got them in. But okay, so here it's got to start with in a holler far, far away.
Right.
Sorry about that.
High pitched sound, didn't it? He's a criminal. You got to watch him.
I might have recorded it with the volume a little bit too high. I'm not sure. I'm not good. I'm not good at this computer stuff.
Hey, on the phone it's fine. But me with what I have it turned up all the way, and it's my fault. But it's just I won't do it again.
You're getting ready to hear it now.
All right.
All right, y'all. See y'all next week at some point.
Thank you very much, Roger.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all, everybody in chat. See y'all later.
I'll go back and watch this and look at the chat and stuff and check everybody out.
Yeah, there might have been other people that were asking questions you want to get back with or whatnot.
Yeah, I probably didn't know the answer anyways.
I don't know the answer.
Everything up. I don't know if I missed anything or not, but.
All right. See y'all. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
See ya.